So I'm assuming that the start of the book now is very different than where you started originally. At what point did you pick where you're going to start? That it's going to be 2 years, and I'm going to ask some questions about how you wrote the book, and I want to be very, very clear that when I ask these questions, I don't have some answer of, oh, here's how I would have done it. I would have added zombies and made a mess of the thing. So that's not why I'm asking these questions, but I do want to know why you made the decisions to better appreciate the artistry that went into the novel. So why is 2 years past the death of George's dad the good spot to start, and why is 12 the right age for Georgia?
That's a terrific question, and you know what? I could have done it a totally other way. I think I did have it at different points that he died when she was younger and she didn't really remember him. You know, sort of figuring out the balance of like how soon did it happen? How much did she know? Because if you lose a parent as a child, which fortunately I have not experienced, you know, if it happened when you're 2, you don't really have memories of the person. You know, so sort of playing with what the time frame and what would be kind of most effective, not to sound cold about it, in terms of like how she would feel and where she would be in her process of grieving and her awareness of who he was. You know, I think if he had died when she was a baby and she hadn't had any memories of him, it would have been a very different book in some ways. So I wanted her to have those like tangible memories that she has in the book of like being with him when he painted and knowing what it was like to be in his studio and grow up in his studio and having experienced that and having, you know, been there when he started some of his great art and wondered about her role in it and whether she had a role and hoping she had a role and then finding that she might have in some way been more of an inspiration than she thought at first. So it was sort of just figuring out about, you know, age and consciousness. And as far as 11, 12, I guess that's just sort of the key age of middle grade for me in terms of, you know, when somebody is still a child, but just sort of on the cusp of entering the next stage in terms of teenagehood and puberty and romantic relationships and all of that. So it's kind of a real discovery point, I think, for children. So I find that age very interesting.
You had said something, I don't remember where you said it. Maybe it was in somewhere in all the stuff I read about you online and preparing. You had written that George's loss is going to offer her an opportunity for change and for deeper self-knowledge. And that's how she's going to come to age, by coming to terms with this loss and kind of reconstructing herself. Does any of this, without getting personal, I never want to ask, you know, I'm not Barbara Walters, I don't want to ask what's the saddest thing that ever happened to you. But when you're writing a novel about loss, is there a loss of your own that you're dealing with while you're doing this?
You know, it's interesting. I was thinking about that because I haven't experienced loss like this. But there definitely was a time in my life when I started writing this that I was feeling loss within my own family, you know, coming from a somewhat large family, you know, just complicated family relationships. And I guess my older sister was going through a divorce, and there was other stuff, you know, the way our family was feeling broken up as we were all branching off and going in different ways. And I won't go too deeply into it, but there was like this sense of loss for me that, you know, I was exploring, I think, through here, that I sort of was like, I can channel this feeling that I'm having about what's happening in my own life in terms of loss and what that means into this experience. And so, you know, I hope that it comes across strongly enough, and, you know, that it makes, you know, that it works, I guess, because it's not something I've experienced directly. So, but I think that, you know, it's legitimate to write about feelings that we have in other ways and put them into fictional situations, I guess.
Did you feel that when you had finished the draft, that it had brought you some sense of closure? Again, without getting specific, and hey, spill your guts.
Closure for myself. I mean, I think, I mean, I wouldn't say for my own life it brought me closure, but I feel like I got to know Georgia and her situation in her life as her own character, and this other fictional situation. You know, it became her fictional character and world became its own sort of real situation to me that I was figuring out what her story was. So it wasn't necessarily about me in that way. It was really what makes sense for her as a character and her life, which I feel like I've found closure with.
That's being a very responsible author. Make sure it's the the character that needs the closure more than the author. That makes sense.